Today I would like to talk about a few little tricks that I use all the time, which can also improve your rendering. At least this is a common question enough. How to get a soft effect in a render? This is especially about drawing hair and skin. Also, this technique helps to connect the object with the background and to add an air perspective. For example, if you look at the picture on the left, you can see how I try to add air around her hair. It's actually not that hard to get if you blur the hair around and make it slightly transparent. It's important to do this irregularly, so that some hairs are brighter and sharper and others go deeper and more invisible. Okay? Also, it's better to do this in different layers. We will work with this in practice later, but it's also important to understand how it works to keep this in your mind and apply your skills appropriately. We can see the same thing on the color of the dress, how these ends here become more blurred. And these feathers on the mask, they're sharper at the beginning, but blurred and more transparent at the ends. This blurring adds some dynamics and makes the work look more interesting and alive. Let's compare how these thin feathers on the mask would look if they were equally sharp along the entire length. In fact, often these small moments can make a really big difference. I also blurred her body slightly to add softness to the skin again. In these areas, I added a slight glow with a soft brush on a new layer. Well, I'll show you how I do it later. The same technique I use in the work on the right. This is the hair. It's a little blurry here too. It's the same in these areas. These are the connections between the character and the background. I usually take the color of the background and paint it with a transparent brush on the top layer. It gives a bit of lightness and air. The cat's chain, well, I made it more blurred in the distance, and the front part I did it sharper. By the way, this is also an important moment. It is better to make the objects which are closer to you sharper than those in the distance. For example, in portrait photos, you can often see that the eyes, nose and lips are always sharper, while hair and the facial oval are more out of focus. Also, sometimes when you draw an object or a character with a complicated background especially, it can look like it was cut out of another place. It feels like a collage or sticker. To avoid this, we have to try to connect the object or character with the environment. The same thing can happen when we draw one object on top of another. To make it clearer, let's imagine that the hair of this character is the background, and we need to draw on top of some object. For example, we will add a flower. So to start with, I drew a simple flower on a separate layer and add some volume to it. Now we see what we talked about before. Even though the flower has volume, it still looks like it's a sticker. I will do a copy of this daisy, so later we can compare before and after. I'll start by drawing a soft shadow on the layer behind the daisy. I use a regular soft brush for such blurry shadows. And now I want to darken the petals very slightly to make the flower less bright. If you look at the edges of the petals now, they look pretty flat, which is what I meant earlier. It looks like a cut-out paper figure. So I take a small hard brush and darken the edges of the petals. In this way, there is extra volume. It is important to do darkening not around the whole petal, but only on one side, In those places where should be there more shadow. I'm adding more volume to the center of the flower. Now I will use the smudge tool and a soft brush. In fact, I almost always use this tool to make the borders not too sharp, because in real life there are almost no perfectly clear and sharp borders. You can see it if you look at any photo, that there is always a slight blur on the outline of any object. Anyway, please be very careful with this tool. If you blur the contours too much, the picture will look blurry. That is, it's important here to blend very lightly, so as to reduce the sharpness just a little bit. I also want to add some glow to the white petals. I'm just taking a transparent soft brush and adding some dabs on top. This way I usually add glow to objects. Sometimes, to increase the glow even more, I paint it in overlay layer mode. To show even more depth under the flower, I try to darken the space between the petals. I do this in multiply mode. I also blur the petals a little more. And add some bright highlights. Now we have an opportunity to fit the flower into the background even better by adding some little strands of hair on the top layer. I'm just drawing the hair with a hard brush, doing it randomly in different places. Then I smoothen them with a soft brush with the smudge tool. I also use this tool a lot in drawing hair to add some slight movement and softness to the hair. With the eraser, I also take some places in this shade. Finally, I want to go over the surface of the flower with a soft transparent brush. I use a reddish hue, the same as on the hair, to connect the flower with the surrounding background. In the central part of the petals have become darker, so I use a soft eraser to lighten these areas. By the way, now the daisy has also become a bit convex. And in the end, I create a new layer in overlay mode, as I said before, to make the petals glow even more. So this is how I usually work when I draw in one object on top of another. I try to look at them together, not apart, to keep them in harmony with each other. And to summarize, try softening the sharpness of the borders. This will add softness and realism to a drawing, but it is important not to overdo it so that the picture doesn't become too defocused. Watch out for differences in lighting. Sometimes certain objects can be too stand out from the general scene, in which case you can shade them a little bit. Unless of course it was not done specially as a part of your idea. Use the background colors to connect the object and the environment. With a white and soft brush in the background color, you can easily create an air aura that will help to connect it to the background. Look for details that help to connect the objects into the background. For example, this is how we added a shadow under a daisy or drew some hairs on top of a flower. I hope that these simple tricks will help you to improve your rendering and make your work more natural and realistic.